Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Nation with me, Dustin Nielsen. Appreciate you popping by, and congratulations to Brad, who was in first and also claimed to be first. Not very often does it happen that way, but it's happening that way today. Congratulations to Brad Jonette. Jeremy says he was like eighth, but he actually was second. All right, feel free to comment in the comments section. I know, I'm scruffy, I'm tired. Oilers game last night. Tough one. What song is this? It's a royalty-free track that we got that's actually just titled Wasp Buzz. And, it's one of the best Wasp Buzz tracks that I've ever played on Inside the Nation. It's just terrific. All right, so we asked earlier today on the Smash Hit Nielsen show, Rashad was talking a little bit about the identity of the Edmonton Oilers. And so I asked him, I was like, what is the identity of this team? And it took him a little while to get an answer. I don't know if I've really come up with an answer either. So my question for you today here on Inside the Nation is, what is the identity of the Edmonton Oilers? And am I wrong to suggest that it's a team with two superstars and we'll need some other, like how do I describe it? I don't want to, it sounds greasy if I say it's a team with two superstars and then a bunch of bums, because that's not what it is. But here we go. I've come up with it. It is superstar reliable. Reliant? Basically, they need McDavid and Draisaitl to be going most nights if they're going to get the job done. So I don't think that's like it's kind of an accurate identity, I think, to be honest with you. So if you want to chime in, feel free to do so in the comment section. Jeremy says they play really well against good teams and really poorly against bad teams, like really badly. It's extremely frustrating, isn't it? Like, you see this team play against good teams, like, for example, the St. Louis Blues last Friday, and you see what they do, and you're like, holy smokes, like, if they can play and that was not a fluke win. Like, they were the better team against the St. Louis Blues. So you see that, and then you go, oh, wow. Okay, well, then this team can make a push. But at the same time, then they come out and lay a couple of duds and don't even look like they really want to be involved, which I think is probably the most frustrating thing out of all of it. So, yeah, that's not great. It is not great at all. But I think they're superstar reliant, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, you could probably describe the Penguins like that for a little while. I mean, they obviously had some veterans who would eventually chip in and help them get the job done. But Fly Dash Story says when they think they are better, they don't show up, which is pretty darn close to probably how they approach it. Apparently, Tippett was fired up today at practice. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened from some folks who were down there. Ryan Rashog. Tough to hear from the stands, but Tippett just gathered the group, had what sounded like a few stern words for them for about 40 minutes into practice. And I think I saw Reed Wilkins tweet that Tippett, after reaming the guys out, kicked a bunch of pucks and kind of skated away. So Dave Tippett's starting to show a little bit of frustration, as he should. This group needs some hard love. I honestly think they do, and let's see how they respond to it. You would hope that McDavid and Draisaitl respond to some hard love from the coach by coming out and lighten it up. But more importantly, playing tighter defensively. Yesterday, and Koskinen was not good. In fact, I hated Koskinen's game last night, but the team around him was just as bad. I mean, too many grade A chances with the others just standing around. Too many battles lost that immediately led to a goal in the back of the net. Just can't happen. And you can't have a goalie allow a goal from behind the goal line either. My son knows to hug the post in that situation. Like, come on. So that is a little frustrating, for sure. I'll give credit to the Sharks. Obviously, they kept grinding. This question is, how much to bring in a guy like Jumbo Joe? Man, so you're going to bring Joe Thornton, play him in your bottom six? And this is not a slap in the face to Joe Thornton at all, because I've always respected Joe Thornton. I think he's a great talent. I love the fact that he came in as a high pick, didn't dominate, waited, finally got his opportunity with the Bruins, and then eventually ended up out here on the West with the San Jose Sharks. But, I mean, when Ken Holland tried to put together this bottom six, when Ken Holland put together this bottom six, it was about guys who could kill penalties and guys who have speed. And Joe Thornton does not have speed, and Joe Thornton does not kill penalties. So I just don't think Joe Thornton is a decent fit. But we'll get to a couple of possible targets as I work my way through this installment of Inside the Nation, because there's a few guys that haven't been talked about a ton that I think you might be able to wiggle out of their current situations. So we'll look at that. Don says, Bear and Nurse a little shaky in their own end. Again. Yeah, great goal from Bear. I didn't think Clefbaum was good last night. Nurse was... overall, it was not a good game from the defense. It looks like Jones is going to draw back in for Lagesson. Did you see a Lagesson? You're like, I think he's a tweener. Honestly, I know it's very early, but I think he's probably a tweener. National Hockey League, American Hockey League tweener. So that's very, very early. But I just get the sense that, and that's not the worst thing. I mean, you could be a tweener and depending on the lineup that you're in, still be a 5, 6, 7 guy. That could end up being what he's doing, but I don't think he ever establishes himself as a top 4 guy. I don't think he has the game that it takes to be a top 4 defenseman in the National Hockey League, but you need bottom pairing guys too, so maybe he can do that. Josh says Benson actually looked pretty good in the third. I didn't want to talk about Benson. I'm kind of giving him a grade of incomplete. You're going to need to see more than 10 minutes for a guy to be like, ooh, he's got it. Ooh, he doesn't. So tough sledding in that game. Some poor examples, personally, I thought, set by other teammates with the way that they played defensively. So I'm going to need to see obviously more from Benson before I can get an opinion on him. Connor McDavid, I was listening to some text messages on TSN today. Obviously see lots of comments on the Nation and on all of our Twitter accounts. By the way, free Oilers Nation Instagram again. It was gone, then it was back. Now it's gone again. For all I know, it's back again already. Somebody let me know, but I'm pretty sure it's still gone. They're not doing anything wrong. Whoever complains about it needs to grow up. I'll leave it at that. I saw somebody say it's a slap in the face to McDavid for him to have the wingers that he has. And you just can't make anybody help. Like Draisaitl and this is not a Draisaitl McDavid thing. This is a fan base thing. Draisaitl and McDavid together, it is great, but you can't get anything else going. Your team is awful in December. They split them up. Draisaitl anchors a really good line with the Nuge and Yamamoto. And now they can't find anybody to play with McDavid. Kassian hasn't been great late. I would have not moved Kassian off the line at practice today. It was Kassian and Gagne with Connor McDavid in the middle. James Neal practiced again, but he was rotating in the line. So, I mean, probably still a little bit away. But you look at it, and it depends on who you talk to. The whole third line center versus top 6 winger. And I think this is how I break it down. So I guess maybe I'm on a little bit on both sides, which is a real greasy way to be. But I think the third line center is the more affordable thing to get right now. But what you really need is a top 6 winger that you can play with McDavid and Kassian, or you can play Nuge with McDavid and Kassian. You can have this top 6 winger play with Leon Draisaitl and Kyler Yamamoto. Like, I think that's the bigger need. but the third line center might be the more affordable piece. Now, on the TSN tradebait board, the top 25 guys who are on that tradebait board, only one of them is a center. It's JG Pajot, and it's probably going to cost you way too much. So then I'm looking at it and going, well, if you're getting any of these other guys, Barclay Goodrow, Derek Grant, how significant of upgrade are they on Riley Sheahan when Sheahan's playing well? And Sheahan's actually been playing pretty well as of late. So I'm not too sure. I think I might try to throw some more eggs in a basket and bring in a winger. Shane says, put Nuge as third line center, acquire 2 wingers? LOL. Maybe. I mean, you could do that. You need to have one of the centers, in my opinion, be better than Nuge. And then poor Nuge is stuck playing with nobody. Biggest must win of the season tomorrow. Man, I wish I didn't have to say that every second game. I think the Preds take one of the wild card spots, so it's essential. Go Oilers. Yeah, the Preds are lurking around there, obviously. Now, from a winning points percentage, they're actually in a wild card spot right now. Mike says, when are we getting Kovalchuk? I'd have time for that right now. I would. I mean, he's obviously found some confidence in Montreal. Montreal's putting him in a spot where he can have some success. If the Oilers were, if you're getting Kovalchuk, you're basically bringing him in here and using him to replace Neil. Do you really need to? It's an interesting. That one intrigues me a little bit. As Mike says, Kovalchuk, McDavid, Cassian line. Wouldn't that be something? That would be something else. Kovalchuk at this stage of his career. Joel says, are they seriously going after Athanasiou? I don't know if they're seriously going after him, but I think there would be some phone calls there. But that's the type of winger that you give up a decent amount to get. I've got on my list here, we already talked about the winger versus center thing, which is definitely a legitimate discussion. And I think I kind of hit the nail on the head. And I didn't even think about it before I started talking, which is usually how it works for me. But I think the more reasonable thing to get right now would be a third line center. But the much bigger need is on the wing. Unless Benson somehow blows up in the next 2 weeks, which would be great. The one team, and I tweeted it last night, and the one team that you might be able to take a look at, let me just bring things up here from our friends at Puckpedia. The New Jersey Devils I find somewhat interesting, partly because they're a tire fire. And there's a few guys there that I try to knock loose if I was Ken Holland. I think there's been a little bit of talk about Miles Wood, who's 24 years old, skates pretty well. He's making $2.75 million per year, but he's under contract for 3 more years, and then he would be an RFA. So that's a guy that you'd be bringing in and basically making a part of your top 9 for the foreseeable future. The other guy that I want to know the price on this guy, because I think the Devils could probably be convinced to move him, and that is Blake Coleman, who scored his 20th goal of the year last night. He had 22 the year before. He's 28 years old. He's got a year left after this year, so it wouldn't be a pure rental. So you'd probably have to give up more than most people would want to give up for somebody who's named Blake Coleman, has played New Jersey, and not many of us know much about. But he skates extremely well. He's hard to knock off the puck. He can play center and both wing positions, so he's extremely versatile. And like I said, he's 28 and has a year left under control next year. So look at these guys. These guys have been phoning me all day. It's that revenue agency. They want to give me a really great deal. And then I also got a call from a legal agency on Ontario that says I must call them immediately and give them all my banking information. So I'm definitely going to do that right away. That totally makes sense. But if you're the Devils and you've got Jack Hughes, who maybe shouldn't even been playing in the league this year, and Nico Hischier, who they probably still love, and Jesper Bratt, those guys, Hughes is 18, Hischier's 21, Bratt is 21. You obviously got some trade pieces. Pavel Zacha, 22. You're still hoping that he works out. Would you be willing to move a 28-year-old who's got a year left next year if you could get, a pretty darn good pick this year and a prospect? I think they might be able to do it. So I like Blake Coleman. Blake Coleman would be target number 1. I don't even know if he's available. But I think Coleman's a guy that you could come in. You don't need to acquire, and this might piss some people off, you don't need to acquire Taylor Hall, okay? and I'm just using him as an example. This isn't the old shot at Taylor. I'm just saying, like, as an elite offensive player, you don't need to go out and pay that price. Okay, you have two of the best 3 or 4 offensive players in the entire National Hockey League, regardless of where their points are right now. Okay, you have Draisaitl, you have McDavid, you have the 2 elites. If you can get a guy who can score 20 goals without Connor McDavid and put him on Connor McDavid's wing and have Kassian on the other side, that guy goes from being a 20-goal scorer to a 30-goal scorer just based on tap-ins alone. So I would love to know the price tag on Coleman. I would. We'll see what ends up happening. But Coleman would be a guy that I would kind of dig into a little bit. Chris says we should get Blake Coleman. Yes. Yes, I think Coleman would be a guy like, for example, if you're the New Jersey Devils, and look, you already got some flyers there. You're hoping Zacha works out, and you're hoping a bunch of this stuff. Why not take a flyer on Jesse Puljujärvi and a second-round pick that becomes, I don't know. I mean, if you give him a second-round pick and say, hey, if we make the conference final, it's a first, then you're giving up the 28th to 31st overall pick. But you made the conference final, and you got Blake Coleman next year as well. Like I don't mind it. What did the Leafs get Clifford for a 3rd round? Coleman probably similar. No. Coleman will cost you much more than Clifford. Clifford can, in my opinion, best days are behind him. And Coleman has already got 20 goals this year and had 22 last year. So that's not even close. Sorry, Chris. And I know you watch all the time, and I appreciate that, but that's a bad comparison. I just say, I got to tell you how it is. So keep that name in mind, Blake Coleman. And keep the Devils in mind as a team that you might be able to shake some things loose on. Go take a look at them and see what you can get. You can play with that new My GM mode at Puckpedia. Hop in there. You can make trades and everything. You can see what your cap hits look like after the deals. This is something that I wish we had when I was like a teenager. I mean, I love it that we have it now that I'm an adult, but teenage Dustin would have spent hours and hours on the My Puckpedia GM mode. Thing is insane, so check it out. All right, that's going to do it for another edition of Inside the Nation. If I feel a little down in the dumps today, if you could tell I was a little bit down in the dumps, it's because I had won 18 straight games of Tecmo Super Bowl against Yukon Jack and Hernan Salas and Matthew Wanek in our Bell building. And I lost today to Yukon Jack. And not only did I lose, I lost, and he was using the Detroit Lions. The very reason I became a Lions fan was because of Tecmo Super Bowl and Barry Sanders. He beat me with that team, and Barry Sanders only ran for 3 yards. And Rodney Peete only threw for 73 yards, and he beat me because I fumbled twice. So my streak is over, so I'm a little pissed off today if that's why I'm down in the dumps. All right, so there you go. That's going to do it for another edition of Inside the Nation. You're hoping next week we're talking about a W here against the Nashville Predators. We'll see how it goes. Preds are a hungry team and a team that had much higher expectations at the beginning of the year than the Oilers did. So this is not an easy game. It's a 5 o'clock start. It's a little bit of an early one as well. So enjoy Hockey Day in Canada, everyone. And Dan, like I mentioned, when you watch this later, know I love you. All right, have a good weekend, everybody. And thanks for watching.